Nora had always lived a simple life, content with the familiar routines of her job and the presence of her boyfriend, Kevin. But sometimes life has other plans. When Kevin callously rejects her heartfelt marriage proposal, Nora's world shifts in ways she never imagined.
The moment was perfect. My heart was pounding, my palms were sweating, but I kept telling myself it would be worth it. Kevin sat across from me, completely unaware of what was about to happen. I could hardly contain my excitement. The small velvet box in my pocket pressed against my leg, a constant reminder of the lottery ticket in it. I had won 2 days ago, an absurd amount of money that felt too unreal to comprehend. And tonight, I was going to share that future with him. Kevin, my boyfriend of 2 years, my forever. I cleared my throat. So I've been thinking. Kevin looked up from his phone, eyes half-lidded, same uninterested expression he always wore when I spoke. He mumbled, taking a sip of his beer. I forced a smile. I wanted to ask you something important. He frowned slightly, finally looking at me.
What's up?
I reached into my pocket, fingers trembling as I wrapped them around the small box. My voice shook as I pulled it out and placed it on the table between us. Kevin, will you marry me? There, I said it. The words hung in the air, heavy with expectation. My heart raced, waiting for his reaction. I thought he'd smile. I thought he'd maybe tear up, or at least look surprised. But the look on his face was none of those things. It was disdain? He stared at the box, then at me like I had just offered him something disgusting.
Are you serious?
His voice was flat, a hint of amusement creeping in at the edges. My pulse quickened. This wasn't how I imagined it going. Yes, I'm serious. I love you. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Kevin leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms over his chest. His lips curled into a smirk, but it wasn't a kind one. It was cold, mocking.
You actually thought I'd say yes?
The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I blinked, not understanding. He scoffed, shaking his head.
Come on, Nora. Look at you. Why would I want to marry you? You're so clueless. You really think I'd commit to someone like you?
My stomach twisted into a tight knot, bile rising in my throat. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Kevin,
God, you're so desperate.
He cut me off, leaning forward now, voice dripping with venom.
You're a joke. Always trying so hard to please me, running around like a little puppy hoping I'll throw you a bone. It's embarrassing.
I felt the sting of tears behind my eyes, but I fought to keep them at bay. Why would you say that? Kevin snorted.
Why? Because it's the truth. I'm not marrying you, Nora. You're nothing but a clingy, insecure mess. And honestly, you're not even that hot. I've been sticking around because it's easy. You don't ask for much, and you're always there when I need something. But marry you? No chance.
The room spun around me. His words felt like shards of glass cutting into me, each one deeper than the last. Kevin,
You what? Think some ring and a romantic lunch will change my mind? You don't get it. You're nothing, Nora. I'm out of your league.
He sneered, his eyes narrowing. I opened my mouth to speak, to tell him about the ticket, but the words wouldn't come. The lottery win suddenly felt meaningless. He didn't deserve it. He didn't deserve any of it. Kevin stood up abruptly, knocking his chair back with a loud scrape against the floor. The entire restaurant turned to look. His eyes flashed with anger, lips curled in disgust as he grabbed his coat from the back of the chair.
This was a waste of my time.
He turned on his heel and stormed out without another glance at me. I was frozen in my seat, the small box with the lottery ticket still sitting in front of me. The air was thick with the stares of the other patrons, their whispers loud in the heavy silence that followed Kevin's exit. My face burned with humiliation, and my chest tightened with a pain so deep I thought I might break apart right there. I needed to leave. I needed to get out of there. Grabbing the box, I stuffed it into my purse and stumbled to my feet. My legs felt shaky beneath me, and the weight of every set of eyes in the room pressed down like a suffocating blanket. I could hear the murmurs, the judgment. They all saw. They all knew. I bolted for the door, pushing past the hostess stand without a word, my vision blurring with unshed tears. The moment I stepped outside, the cold rain hit me like a slap in the face. I didn't care. I just wanted to get as far away from that restaurant, from the humiliation, from Kevin, as I could. But my feet slipped on the slick pavement. I fell hard, my knee slamming into the ground, sending a jolt of pain up my leg. My hands hit the concrete, scraping against the rough surface, and I gasped as the rain pelted down, soaking me to the bone. For a moment, I just sat there, crumpled on the sidewalk, too devastated to move. Then, I felt strong hands wrap around my arms, lifting me to my feet. My heart raced as I looked up, expecting another round of humiliation, but instead, I was met with the deep, concerned eyes of a man I'd never seen before. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and utterly handsome, with rain-soaked dark hair plastered against his forehead. His sharp jawline was softened by the rain, but his eyes were bright and piercing, almost too beautiful to be real.
Are you all right?
His voice was rich, steady, and carried a warmth I hadn't felt in what seemed like ages. I'm fine, I stammered, though I was far from fine. My chest still hurt, and I could feel the tears threatening to spill. He didn't release my arms. Instead, he tilted his head, studying me with a hint of curiosity.
You're not fine.
His words were gentle, but they cut through the fragile wall I'd been trying to build around myself. A sob slipped out before I could stop it, and I quickly covered my mouth, mortified. Then, to my surprise, he smiled. A slow, easy smile that seemed out of place in the middle of this chaotic, rainy day. He said softly,
Don't cry. I have a solution for you.
I blinked up at him, utterly confused. What do you mean? The rain poured harder, drenching both of us, but he didn't seem to care. He leaned in slightly, his voice low but firm.
I'll marry you.
My breath hitched. What?
I'll marry you. I need a wife, and you want a husband. It's perfect.
He repeated, his eyes never leaving mine. I stared at him, too shocked to respond. Was this man crazy? Who just proposes marriage to a stranger in the middle of the street in the pouring rain? He must have sensed my hesitation, because he gave a light chuckle, the sound deep and soothing despite the absurdity of the situation.
I'm serious. I don't know what happened in there, but it's clear you don't have anything to lose. Neither do I.
I swallowed, trying to make sense of what was happening. My heart was still reeling from Kevin's cruelty, and now, this stranger was standing in front of me, offering me something I hadn't expected. A way out. Why? Why do you need a wife right now? I managed to ask, my voice trembling. He shrugged, the rain dripping from his coat.
Business reasons. You wouldn't believe it if I told you, but trust me, it's mutually beneficial. What do you say?
I opened my mouth to protest, to say something rational, but then I thought of Kevin, of the heartache and humiliation I had just suffered. What did I have to lose? The box with the lottery ticket burned a hole in my purse, a reminder of what I had planned tonight. Kevin didn't deserve it, but maybe. Okay, I whispered, barely able to believe the word had left my lips. He smiled again, his grip on my arms tightening just slightly as he nodded.
Good. Let's get out of the rain then, and figure out the rest. By the way, I'm Oliver Langston.
Nora Simmons, I said, and just like that, my world shifted. The courthouse was quiet, the buzz of fluorescent lights humming overhead as Oliver and I stood before the clerk. I barely registered the words being said, everything around me feeling like a surreal dream. It had been less than an hour since I had agreed to marry him, and now here we were, about to make it official. My heart pounded in my chest, my mind spinning with questions I didn't have the courage to ask. Oliver was calm, collected, standing beside me like we'd been planning this for months, not minutes. His hand brushed against mine, warm and steady, grounding me when I felt like I might float away from the weight of it all. Before the ceremony began, Oliver turned to me, his expression suddenly serious.
I have 2 requests. 1, keep our marriage a secret for a little while. I have my reasons, and I promise you'll understand soon enough. And 2, don't do anything to embarrass me after we're married. I know that sounds harsh, but I have a reputation to protect.
I blinked, the oddness of his requests catching me off guard. But what could I say? I was already in too deep. Okay, I said quietly. I agree. Oliver smiled, his eyes softening as he nodded. He glanced at my purse.
Good. Now, do you want to give me the box?
My heart skipped a beat. The box. I had almost forgotten about it in the whirlwind of emotions. I hesitated, my fingers curling around the strap of my purse, uncertainty creeping in. But this was Oliver, my soon-to-be husband. I had nothing to hide from him. Slowly, I pulled the box from my purse and handed it to him. He opened it, and his eyes widened when he saw the folded slip of paper inside. He pulled it out, and I watched as recognition dawned on his face, his lips curving into a smile.
The lottery ticket. This is the one everyone's been talking about.
I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. It was supposed to be my engagement present to him. Now it's yours. Oliver's gaze softened, and to my surprise, he handed the ticket back to me. He said simply,
Keep it.
I frowned, confused. But why? I wanted to.
All your questions will be answered later.
He interrupted, his tone gentle but firm.
For now, just hang on to it. Trust me.
Trust him. The words echoed in my head. He would soon be my husband. Trust was part of the deal, right? The ceremony was over quickly, a blur of vows and signatures, and before I knew it, we were married.
I'm sorry I don't have a ring for you. I promise I'll get you a proper one soon.
He slipped off the signet ring he'd been wearing on his pinky. He slid the ring onto my finger, where it fit snugly. I stared at it for a moment, the reality of what we were doing settling into my bones. This was happening. This man I had just met was now my husband. Oliver slipped his hand into mine, his grip warm and reassuring, and for the briefest moment, I felt like maybe this wasn't a mistake. We walked out of the courthouse and into the rain-soaked streets.
Now, I want you to move into my place.
My eyebrows shot up. Your place. He smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes.
Yes. Unfortunately, I won't be there for a while. I've got some business to take care of. But don't worry, you'll be expected. Just pack your things and head over. Here's the address.
He handed me a card with an address written in neat, precise handwriting.
I'll be back in a week.
Before I could ask any more questions, he kissed me on the forehead, murmured a quick goodbye, and disappeared into the rain. Back at my apartment, I stared at the half-packed suitcase on my bed, my mind still reeling from everything that had happened. I had just gotten married to a man I barely knew, and now I was supposed to move into his place while he disappeared. As I stuffed a few more things into my suitcase, there was a knock at the door. My heart leaped. Maybe Oliver had come back. But when I opened the door, it wasn't Oliver standing on the threshold. It was Kevin. My stomach twisted. He looked just as I remembered, disheveled, angry, with that cruel glint in his eyes that had haunted me ever since he'd walked out of that restaurant.
Nora, we need to talk.
I tried to close the door, but he pushed his way inside, his presence filling the small space. What the hell, Kevin? I snapped, my heart racing. You have no right to be here. He ignored me, his eyes scanning the packed suitcase.
Where are you going?
Like you care? I shot back, my voice shaking with anger. Kevin smirked, stepping closer.
Oh, I care, Nora.
Kevin's smirk made my skin crawl. He stood there so sure of himself, leaning against the wall like he had all the power in the world. For a moment, I was speechless, staring at him in disbelief. After everything he'd said in that restaurant, after humiliating me in front of everyone, he was standing here, smiling. He took a step closer, that familiar condescending gleam in his eyes.
You know, I've thought about it, Nora. Really thought about it. And I've decided that I'm willing to accept your proposal.
My stomach churned, but I didn't say anything. Not yet. He continued, his tone casual like he was discussing the weather.
I was hesitant at first because, well, I thought maybe you were just after my money. It wouldn't be the first time, you know. Girls like you tend to get stars in their eyes when they meet a guy with my kind of background.
My hands tightened into fists at my sides. Was he serious? Kevin went on, oblivious to the rage slowly simmering beneath my skin.
But then I realized you're not smart enough to be a gold digger.
I blinked, my mind struggling to keep up the absolute absurdity of what he was saying.
You're a little too simple-minded for that, and that's when it hit me. Given my looks, my wealth, my family background, I need someone like you.
His words hung in the air, thick and suffocating. He clarified, as if I didn't understand.
Someone obedient. Someone who loves me, who admires me. You do love me, Nora, right?
He tilted his head, studying me like I was a charity case he was about to save.
I mean, you were practically begging for my hand in marriage.
My jaw tightened, my pulse hammering in my ears. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Kevin smiled, stepping closer, his voice dropping to a softer tone as if he were offering me the greatest gift in the world.
So, I'm doing you a favor. You get to marry me, the man you love. That's what you want, right? To be Mrs. Kevin Lewis?
I stared at him, dumbfounded. The audacity of this man. He stood there waiting for me to fall at his feet in gratitude. In his mind, he was doing me the biggest favor of my life by allowing me to marry him. I thought about the lottery ticket, the one that made me wealthier than Kevin ever dreamed of being. And then I thought about Oliver. Tall, broad-shouldered Oliver with his warm smile and the confident way he carried himself. I thought about how Oliver's eyes softened when he looked at me, how his hands had gently pulled me up from the rain-soaked street. Oliver was more handsome, more kind, and, well, taller. I couldn't help but glance down at Kevin's shoes, my lips twitching in amusement. Oliver had bigger feet too, and we all know what that means. I pressed my lips together to suppress a laugh, the absurdity of the situation making me feel lighter, like a weight had lifted from my shoulders. Kevin raised an eyebrow.
What's so funny?
I shook my head, my amusement quickly fading as the reality of his words hit me again. He had no idea about the lottery, no idea about Oliver. And here he was, standing in my apartment, telling me I was lucky to marry him. The words formed in my head, all the things I wanted to say to him. I wanted to scream that I didn't need him, that I had more money than he'd ever see in his life, that I'd found someone far better. But I remembered Oliver's request to keep our marriage secret, and I had promised. So instead I took a deep breath and said the only thing I could. I'm not going to marry you, Kevin. His face twisted in confusion, and then anger.
What do you mean you're not going to marry me?
I can't. I won't. My voice was steady now, calm. I don't want to. Kevin blinked, as if the very idea of being turned down was beyond comprehension.
What? What the hell does that mean, Nora? Of course you want to marry me. You asked me, remember?
I shook my head slowly, looking up at him, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. Well, now I'm unasking you. Not that it matters anymore.
Doesn't matter. You're turning me down? After all this? After I finally agree to marry you? You're rejecting me?
His voice rose, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. I didn't say anything. I didn't owe him an explanation. All I could think about was how freeing it felt to stand here and say no to him, to finally take back control of my life. Kevin's face reddened with anger, his mouth twisting into a sneer.
You're an idiot, Nora. You'll regret this. You'll never find someone like me again. You'll die alone, wishing you'd taken this chance. You were never good enough for me anyway.
He stormed out, slamming the door behind him so hard it rattled the walls. I stood there, staring at the closed door, my heart pounding in my chest. Silence filled the room as I tried to process everything that had just happened. The truth was slowly sinking in. Kevin was out of my life, for good. I sank onto the edge of the bed, wrapping my arms around myself. What had I ever seen in him? I tried to remember the things that had made me fall in love with him in the first place, but nothing came to mind. Instead, I realized that I had fooled myself. I had built Kevin up in my head, created this fantasy version of him that didn't exist. I'd convinced myself that he was something more, something better than what he truly was. A soft laugh escaped my lips, tinged with regret. How silly I had been, wasting 2 years on a man who didn't even care about me, a man who thought so little of me that he assumed I was chasing his money. I shuddered at the thought of what might have happened if he hadn't turned me down. What if I had married him? What kind of miserable life would I have been trapped in? I shook my head, grateful that things had played out the way they had. He'd rejected me, and it had been the wake-up call I needed. I was free now, free from the illusion I'd been living in. I glanced at the clock and decided to go to bed, too drained to finish packing. Tomorrow was another day, and I'd finished getting ready to move into Oliver's place then. The next day at work, I was buried in emails when a delivery arrived at my desk. I blinked in surprise at the enormous bouquet of flowers that towered over my keyboard, a cascade of vibrant colors and delicate petals. My heart skipped a beat as I reached for the note nestled within the blooms.
See you when I get back.
A smile tugged at my lips, spreading across my face before I could stop it. Oliver. I couldn't help but feel a warmth bloom inside me, a happiness I hadn't felt in a long time. The flowers were stunning, and they had instantly brightened my day. Colleagues started gathering around, admiring the flowers and offering teasing comments.
Who are those from?
I shrugged, not bothering to correct them when they assumed they were from Kevin. Let them think what they wanted. I wasn't about to explain the complicated web my life had become. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed on my desk, and I glanced at the screen. It was Kevin. Rolling my eyes, I answered it, bracing myself for whatever nonsense he had to say.
Who sent you the flowers? I got a text from Julie and she said you got flowers at work. Who sent them?
I'm working, Kevin. I don't have time for this. Without waiting for his response, I hung up and immediately turned off my phone. The satisfaction of cutting him off washed over me, and I leaned back in my chair, closing my eyes for a moment. I wasn't letting him ruin this. Later that afternoon, I left work early, feeling lighter than I had in a long time. The thought of moving into Oliver's place was strange, exciting, and nerve-wracking all at once. As I arrived at the address he had given me, I was stunned. The building towered over the street, a sleek, modern structure that screamed luxury. The penthouse? It was nothing like I had expected. A butler greeted me at the entrance and I blinked, still trying to wrap my mind around it all. He took my bags.
Welcome, Mrs. Langston. Please, allow me to show you to the master suite.
I followed him, wide-eyed as I took in the opulence of the space. Everything gleamed. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, elegant furniture. It was more than I had ever imagined. The view from the floor-to-ceiling windows alone was breathtaking. This was another world. As the butler led me to the master suite, a maid appeared at my side.
Dinner will be served at 6, Mrs. Langston. If you need anything before then, please don't hesitate to ask.
I nodded, still too stunned to speak. Who exactly had I married? My thoughts raced as I looked around the room. taking in the massive four-poster bed, the rich fabrics, the sheer size of the place. I had no idea who Oliver really was, but clearly, he wasn't just an ordinary guy. That evening, as I was settling into the plush bedding, my phone rang. I answered it without checking the caller ID.
Where are you? I went to your place and you're not there. It's late, Nora. Where the hell are you?
Kevin's voice snapped through the line, cold and demanding. My stomach twisted in irritation. I moved, I said, keeping my voice steady.
You what? Where did you move to? Tell me where you are, Nora.
It's none of your business, I replied firmly. Stop calling me, Kevin. We're over. I hung up on him again, my heart racing. I was done with him, done with his possessiveness and arrogance. He couldn't control me anymore. The phone rang again, and I snatched it up, ready to tell him off for the last time. Kevin, I told you.
Nora, it's me.
Oliver's soothing voice cut through my frustration. I exhaled, feeling all the tension drain from my body. Oh, I thought it was Kevin again. Sorry.
Is he giving you trouble? If you want me to deal with him, just say the word.
Oliver asked, his tone still calm but with an edge of concern. I smiled, grateful for his offer. No, it's fine. I can handle him. I'm going to block him right now. By the way, thank you for the flowers.
I'm glad you liked them.
They're beautiful, I said, my heart warming again. Then I hesitated, unsure if I should even ask, but curiosity got the better of me. Oliver, who are you? This place, it's incredible.
You could look me up if you're really curious.
No, I want you to tell me. He laughed, the sound deep and teasing.
I suppose you'll find out soon enough then. For now, just enjoy it.
Despite his playful evasion, his voice put me at ease. I smiled as I curled up in the massive bed, feeling happier than I had in a long time. I will, I promised, letting the mystery settle around me. For once, I didn't need all the answers. Right now, everything felt right. The next evening, the restaurant was buzzing with laughter and conversation as my coworkers and I celebrated our team's big win. It felt good to let loose after all the hard work, and I found myself relaxing, enjoying the flow of drinks and good company. For the first time in days, I felt at ease, the events of the past week melting away in the background. Then, out of nowhere, Kevin walked in. I froze, my heart sinking. He looked around, quickly spotting me at the table, and his expression darkened. I hadn't told anyone about our breakup yet, and when my coworkers noticed him, they greeted him with casual familiarity.
Hey, Kevin, come join us.
But Kevin didn't respond to their invitation. He locked eyes with me, his jaw clenched, and I knew this wasn't going to be a simple conversation. He marched over to the table, ignoring everyone else as he stopped right in front of me.
Nora, we need to talk. What's going on?
The table fell silent, and I could feel all eyes on me. My stomach churned and I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. Kevin, this is neither the time nor the place, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. We can discuss this later.
No, we're going to hash this out right now.
I glanced around, my coworkers watching the exchange with wide eyes. The festive mood had evaporated, and now there was nothing but awkward silence. Kevin, please, I tried again, my voice firmer. Not here. But he wasn't listening. His eyes dropped to my hand, where Oliver's ring sat snugly on my finger. Kevin's expression twisted in confusion, then anger. He reached out and grabbed my hand, yanking it toward him.
What is this?
He demanded, his voice louder now, drawing more attention from the surrounding tables. I yanked my hand away, my heart racing. It's a ring, I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Oliver gave it to me.
Who the hell is Oliver?
Kevin's voice was sharp, and I could see the confusion and disbelief in his eyes. He looked around the table as if expecting someone to fill in the blanks, but no one said a word. He's a friend, I replied, my pulse quickening. Kevin let out a bitter laugh.
Friend? Why would this friend give you a ring? And why are you wearing it on that finger? What is this? Some kind of joke?
Because he wanted me to have it, I said simply, meeting his glare head on. Kevin's eyes narrowed as he studied the ring, his lips curling in disdain. Then his expression shifted to something smug.
This looks like some kind of family heirloom. Wait, this isn't real, is it? This whole thing is fake. You made him up.
I blinked in surprise, but before I could say anything, he went on, his voice laced with venom.
You sent yourself those flowers at work, didn't you? You're just trying to make me jealous. How pathetic, Nora. Honestly, it's embarrassing.
Heat flared in my chest, and I felt my temper rising. I stood up, pushing my chair back, and I faced him. I don't care about making you jealous, Kevin. And for the record, I didn't send myself flowers. Oliver did. Kevin scoffed, crossing his arms.
Yeah, right. This Oliver guy doesn't exist. You've completely lost it.
I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. You're wrong, and for the last time I broke up with you. We're done, Kevin. You need to accept that and leave me alone. The words hung in the air for a moment, and I could see the anger building in Kevin's eyes. He stood there for a beat, his fists clenching at his sides, before he finally turned on his heel and stormed off, pushing past the tables as he made his way out of the restaurant. For a second, the tension at the table was unbearable, everyone sitting in stunned silence. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of the moment lift, and turned to my coworkers, an apologetic smile on my face. Sorry about that, I said softly. One of my coworkers, Janet, piped up with a grin.
Well, that was awkward. But hey, at least we know you've got good taste in drama.
The table burst into laughter, and I couldn't help but chuckle along with them, grateful for the light-hearted comment that broke the tension. Thanks, Janet, I said, feeling the mood start to shift back to normal. We resumed our celebration, the awkwardness quickly fading as the drinks started flowing again. But even as the night continued, a small smile played on my lips, knowing that the worst was behind me. The soft, enticing scent of freshly brewed coffee drifted through the air, gently pulling me from sleep. My eyes fluttered open, and I blinked in surprise at the breakfast tray sitting on the nightstand. It was beautifully arranged, complete with a steaming cup of coffee, fresh fruit, and buttery croissants. For a moment, I thought I was still dreaming. Then I heard his voice.
Wake up, Mrs. Langston.
Oliver said softly from beside the bed. I turned to see him sitting on the edge of the mattress, his face lit with a warm smile. His hair was slightly tousled, like he had just gotten out of bed himself, and there was a lightness in his eyes that made my heart skip a beat.
I enjoyed watching you sleep, but I think I'd prefer a proper welcome.
Still groggy, I sat up, a shy smile spreading across my face. Without thinking, I threw myself into his arms, my cheek resting against the warmth of his chest. It felt so natural, so right. His arms closed around me, strong and reassuring, and I breathed in the scent of him, clean and comforting. Since that first night when I moved into the penthouse, we had talked on the phone every day, sometimes more than once a day. Oliver had said it was important we start to get to know each other so that we wouldn't be complete strangers when he returned. Even though I didn't know that much about him yet, there was something about his voice that made me feel like I had known him for years. It was deep and soothing, with a hint of playfulness that always made me smile. As the days passed, our conversations grew longer and more intimate. Oliver shared his dreams and fears, and I found myself opening up to him in ways I never had with anyone else. It was as if we were building a connection that transcended physical distance. I began to look forward to his return, and now he was finally here. Oliver held me tighter, resting his chin on the top of my head.
I didn't expect to miss you, but I did. I hope you feel the same way.
He admitted, his voice low and intimate. I pulled back slightly to look up at him, my face warming under his tender gaze. "I do," I said, my heart fluttering with the realization that this was happening. We were slowly, cautiously, falling for each other. His smile deepened and he reached into his pocket, pulling out a small velvet box. My breath caught as he opened it, revealing a breathtakingly beautiful wedding ring set. The diamonds sparkled in the morning light, the intricate design mesmerizing. Even though I wasn't an expert in jewelry, I could tell this was something rare, something that cost a fortune. "Oliver," I whispered, my eyes wide in awe. "It's stunning."
As soon as I saw it, I knew it belonged on your beautiful hand.
I hesitated, my fingers twitching in my lap. The ring looked so precious I wasn't sure I should even touch it, let alone wear it. "Are you sure?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed by the weight of the gesture.
Absolutely.
He said it with conviction. He took my left hand gently, removing the signet ring that had been a placeholder, and carefully slid the wedding band and engagement ring onto my ring finger. The metal was cool against my skin, and I marveled at how perfect it looked, like it had always belonged there. Oliver brought my hand to his lips in an old-world romantic gesture, kissing it with a reverence that made my heart race. He murmured against my skin, his voice soft but full of meaning.
"Thank you for being my wife."
My chest felt tight with emotion, my heart thudding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I barely managed to whisper, "Thank you." He stood, his presence still looming large over the room, and smiled down at me.
"Now go get ready. We have a lot to talk about."
I watched him as he left the room, my heart racing in my chest, his words still echoing in my mind. "Thank you for being my wife." My pulse quickened at the memory of the way he had said it, how his lips had brushed against my hand. It was like something out of a dream, and I wasn't sure if I was ready to wake up. The butler greeted me as I stepped downstairs, his polished demeanor as impeccable as ever.
"Mr. Langston is waiting for you in the study, Mrs. Langston."
"Thank you," I murmured, my nerves fluttering. I smoothed down the front of my dress as I approached the door, taking a deep breath before gently pushing it open. Oliver was sitting on the couch, leaning back comfortably, but as soon as he saw me, his face lit up with a warm, genuine smile. It was impossible not to compare his reaction to how Kevin used to greet me, if you could even call it a greeting. Kevin had always seemed annoyed, like my presence was more of a bother than anything else. But Oliver, he looked happy to see me, and that made my heart flutter.
"You wanted to know why I needed a wife."
"Yes," I replied, still slightly unsure of what was about to be revealed. "You're wealthy, handsome, and very kind, if I'm not mistaken." He laughed, the sound rich and light. It put me at ease instantly. He gestured for me to sit beside him on the couch, and I took a seat, feeling the warmth of his presence beside me.
"I was engaged to be married once, but my fiancé ran away with another man the day I met you."
I blinked in surprise, an odd mix of jealousy and pity flooding my chest. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me felt sorry for him, but another part of me couldn't help but be glad that he hadn't married someone else. After a beat, I settled on a soft, "I'm sorry." He shook his head, a smile still playing on his lips.
"Don't be. We weren't in love. The marriage had been arranged by our families."
I nodded, unsure if that made me feel better or worse.
"But she met someone else and fell in love. I'm happy for her."
A wave of relief washed over me. He was free, emotionally as well as literally. I hadn't realized just how much that had mattered to me until this moment. Oliver's expression softened, his eyes meeting mine.
"But I still needed to get married, Nora. Not for love or companionship, but to salvage my public image. As the head of my family and our company, I have to project stability, respectability, and most of all, a traditional family life. It's what our investors want to see. They need reassurance because, well, I'm young for someone in my position."
I absorbed his words, understanding more clearly now the weight of his responsibilities. It wasn't just about appearances. It was about maintaining control of something bigger than himself. But then his gaze lingered on me, and something in his eyes shifted.
But I think fate stepped in to give me a helping hand.
His voice dropped just slightly. There was a hint of something deeper behind his words, something unspoken. He wasn't just talking about his public image anymore. My heart fluttered again, this time with an unmistakable warmth. He was alluding to feelings that went beyond obligation or convenience, feelings that mirrored my own. Then, the memory of the scene at the restaurant with Kevin played in my mind. I shifted in my seat, glancing over at Oliver, who seemed completely at ease. Part of me worried about how it might affect him, especially when he had made it clear that protecting his public image was important. "I wanted to ask you something," I began, my voice hesitant. He turned to look at me, his expression soft.
What is it?
I swallowed, feeling my nerves creeping up. The scene with Kevin at the restaurant. "I'm really sorry that happened. I hope it won't cause you any problems since you're trying to maintain your public image." Oliver's lips twitched into a small smile, and he reached over, gently squeezing my hand.
You don't need to apologize for that, Nora. You handled yourself well, and it's not something you could have controlled.
Relief washed over me, and I smiled back at him, grateful for his understanding. "Thank you. I just didn't want to make things more difficult for you." He shook his head, still smiling.
You didn't. Trust me. Besides, my request at the courthouse had been more about you having feelings for someone else. I don't think I need to worry about that.
Before I could respond, Oliver straightened up slightly, his tone shifting back to its usual easy charm.
Tonight, we're attending a gala. Think of it as our official coming out as a married couple. The upper echelons of society will be there, so we'll make quite the impression.
A gala? My stomach flipped, a mix of excitement and nerves bubbling up. This was all happening so fast, and the idea of being introduced to Oliver's world as his wife felt like stepping into a completely different universe.
Before that, you'll be meeting my family. We're having an early dinner, and I thought it was the perfect time for introductions.
My pulse quickened. His family. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I knew I had to make a good impression. This wasn't just dinner. It was a defining moment. Oliver must have sensed my nerves because he reached out and gently squeezed my hand, his touch grounding me.
You'll be fine. They'll love you.
His words gave me strength, and I nodded, smiling back at him. I could do this. With Oliver by my side, I felt like I could handle anything. As we drove to dinner, Oliver asked me about my family. I told him my parents passed away in an accident when I was 19. I didn't have any other family. I could see the sympathy in his eyes, but he nodded, squeezing my hand. He then told me about his family. When we arrived for dinner, I realized Oliver had been right. His family was lovely, warm and welcoming in every way. I could see where he got his kindness and easy humor from. They were gracious and seemed genuinely happy to meet me. The tension I'd felt earlier melted away as I relaxed into the conversation, enjoying their company. Back at the penthouse, I stood in front of the mirror in the bedroom, staring at the breathtaking ball gown laid out on the bed. I had worried I wouldn't have anything appropriate for the gala, but Oliver had assured me it had all been taken care of, and he wasn't kidding. The gown was a masterpiece, deep emerald with intricate beadwork that shimmered in the light. It was the kind of dress I had only seen in magazines, something out of a fairy tale. Next to it was a box containing diamond jewelry, simple yet stunning. I ran my fingers over the fabric, still in disbelief. Feeling like Cinderella about to go to the ball, I slipped into the gown, the weight of it both grounding and exhilarating. The diamonds sparkled as I clasped the necklace around my neck, completing the transformation. With one final glance in the mirror, I smoothed my hands down the front of the dress and made my way downstairs. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, Oliver was waiting for me. his eyes immediately locking on mine. His reaction took my breath away. He stared at me as if transfixed, his gaze sweeping over me as though he couldn't believe what he was seeing.
You look beautiful.
His voice was low and full of awe. Heat rushed to my cheeks and I couldn't help but smile. "You're pretty beautiful yourself." He laughed softly, stepping forward and pulling me close. For a moment, the world outside disappeared, and it was just the two of us.
Ready for the ball?
He teased, his breath warm against my cheek. "As long as I'm with you," I whispered back, my nerves melting away in his presence. The gala was in full swing when we arrived, the grand ballroom filled with glittering lights, elegant music, and people dressed to the nines. I tightened my grip on Oliver's hand as we entered, feeling a wave of nervousness creep in. But Oliver, ever the gentleman, leaned down and whispered,
I won't leave your side, I promise.
His words steadied me, and I nodded, feeling reassured as we made our way through the crowd. Oliver was the perfect escort, introducing me to the upper echelons of society with pride, his hand never leaving mine. I noticed some of the women casting sideways glances my way, their jealousy thinly veiled, but it didn't bother me. How could it? I was with Oliver, kind, handsome, and everything I could have hoped for. But as the evening wore on, the weight of the event began to take its toll. The lights, the music, the endless conversation. It was all a bit overwhelming. I leaned into Oliver, whispering, "I need some fresh air." He nodded immediately, his hand guiding me to the balcony. The cool night air hit my face, and I sighed with relief, the noise of the party fading behind us. "This is much better," I said, closing my eyes and enjoying the quiet. Oliver stood beside me, his arm brushing against mine, the simple contact enough to calm my racing heart. But the peace didn't last long. A voice, sharp and sneering, cut through the stillness.
Well, look at you, Nora, all dressed up pretending to be a princess.
I stiffened instantly, recognizing the cruel tone. Kevin. He stepped out onto the balcony, his arms crossed, an ugly smirk on his face.
Didn't take long for you to move on, I see.
His eyes darted to Oliver, then back to me, filled with venom. Oliver tensed beside me, but he didn't move. I could feel his protectiveness radiating off him, but he let me handle it. "What do you want, Kevin?" I said, my voice steady despite the anger boiling inside me. Kevin laughed, a harsh sound that grated against the peaceful night.
Just wanted to see how far you've fallen, hanging all over some guy you probably barely know, trying to fit in where you don't belong.
I opened my mouth to respond, but before I could, Oliver stepped forward, his voice calm but cold.
That's enough.
Kevin sneered, looking Oliver up and down.
And who are you? Her latest distraction?
Oliver's eyes narrowed slightly, but he didn't rise to the bait.
I'm her husband.
The words hung in the air, a declaration that left no room for doubt. Kevin's expression faltered for a split second before the sneer returned.
Her husband? Is that what you're calling it? You really are pathetic, Nora.
He looked back at me, his voice dripping with malice.
Leave,
Oliver said firmly, his voice a low warning. Kevin's sneer didn't falter as he took a step toward us, refusing to be dismissed so easily. His eyes narrowed as he looked at me.
I underestimated you, Nora. I thought you were innocent, naive, but I see now that you're nothing more than a gold digger. You weren't satisfied with me, huh? You needed to go after bigger fish.
I opened my mouth to respond, but Oliver beat me to it, stepping in front of me with an icy calm that sent a chill through the air. His voice was low and controlled, but it carried the weight of something far more dangerous than anger.
You think you know who Nora is? Let me enlighten you. Nora isn't after anyone's money. In fact, she's wealthier than you'll ever be.
Kevin's smug expression wavered, but he forced a laugh.
What are you talking about?
Oliver glanced at me, and I nodded, giving him silent permission.
Her net worth is in the hundreds of millions.
Kevin blinked, his face going pale as the reality of Oliver's words sank in.
What?
Oliver smirked.
Nora planned to reveal that to you as a surprise the night you turned her down at the restaurant. She won the big lottery everyone's talking about, and she was going to give you the winning ticket as an engagement present.
The blood drained from Kevin's face as his mouth opened and closed, trying to find the words.
You're lying.
Not at all. In fact, I should thank you for being dumb enough to let her slip through your fingers. I'm the lucky one now.
Kevin's mouth twitched, but when he tried to retort, all that came out were garbled, nonsensical words. The air around him felt heavy with his own humiliation. He straightened, attempting to salvage some dignity.
You think you can just throw her money in my face and get away with this? You don't know who you're dealing with.
Oliver raised an eyebrow, his voice turning even colder.
I think you're the one who doesn't know who you're speaking to.
Kevin glared at him, but before he could say another word, Oliver continued.
You see, after you started hounding Nora, I took the liberty of acquiring your family's business. I also acquired the bank holding the mortgage to your family's estate. The deals were finalized yesterday.
Kevin's face turned ghostly white.
It's now under my control. So here's how this works. You're going to disappear. I'm giving you the courtesy of a warning, but my patience and goodwill only extend so far. If you push me, I might reconsider and take everything your family has left.
The threat lingered in the air, and for a moment, Kevin stood there frozen, his pride crumbling. Without another word, he turned and slunk away, his tail between his legs. I stood there, stunned by what I had just witnessed. This side of Oliver, calm, controlled, yet undeniably powerful, left me in awe. I had never seen someone wield their influence so effortlessly. And the fact that he had done all of this for me, it made my heart swell with gratitude and something deeper. Oliver turned to me, his expression softening.
You all right?
I nodded, still processing everything. I can't believe you did that. He smiled, stepping closer.
I'll always protect you, Nora. You're my wife.
The weight of his words, the tenderness in his voice, filled me with warmth. Without thinking, I leaned up and pressed my lips to his, a shy yet certain kiss that felt like the start of something beautiful. When we pulled back, he smiled down at me, brushing a strand of hair from my face.
We have a lot to look forward to,
Oliver said, his eyes filled with promise. I smiled, my heart feeling full. Yes, we do. A few weeks later, I went to lunch with Julie. She stirred her coffee, glancing up at me with a raised eyebrow.
So, have you heard about Kevin?
I tilted my head, pretending curiosity. She leaned in, her voice low, as if sharing a juicy piece of gossip.
He was fired from his family's company and left town. Apparently, he offended someone really powerful, and his family had to send him away to avoid losing their money and ruining their reputation.
I blinked.
No one's saying much, but the rumor is that Kevin's family cut him off financially. They think he's a spoiled brat who needs to grow up. No one knows where he went, or if he's ever coming back.
I smiled politely, making a neutral comment about how that was probably for the best. But inside I was happy. Oliver had made sure I'd never have to deal with Kevin's bitterness again. And for that, I was forever grateful.
Nora's life had taken twists she never could have predicted. What began as heartbreak and rejection turned into a newfound sense of power. In Oliver, she found not just a husband, but a partner who saw her worth and stood by her side through every challenge. In the end, Nora realized that fate sometimes leads us down paths we never imagined, only to bring us exactly where we belong.